if this doesn't get you excited about this matchup, I don't know what will.
我们跟 SKT 比的话，我们常在前期跑团战。
There's the kick, Flash lands the Q at the same time, Flash in, and Faker's dead one more time.
SKT, the longer the tournament goes on, the better they get throughout history.
SKT, they pull out the miracle fight. They're looking like gods.
RNG가 조별 예선에서 1등으로 진출했기 때문에 지금은 가장 강한 팀이라고 생각해서 이번 4강전이 굉장히 기대되는 것 같아요.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the 2016 Mid-Season Invitational Knockout Stage. Of the 6 teams that entered Shanghai's Oriental Sports Center 1 week ago, just 4 remain in the pursuit of the MSI Championship. As the pressure ramped up earlier today, we got to look at fans and cosplayers who are more than hyped for the semis.
It's a pirate.
Timo, so pirate, that would be a Gangplank, and Zed making his appearance. Faker. Maybe he'll play. I would love to see, exactly. I'd love to see him play it maybe in this game. The rest of SKT, they're getting ready as MLXG leads the way for RNG as they make their way to the stage today. We've got a lot to cover. So before we get on the Rift, we're going to send it downstairs to the LPL's Rendong and meet today's semifinalists.
欢迎来到上海。您现在正在收看的是2016英雄联盟季中冠军赛。
that all these players are competing for here at MSI. A beautiful one at that.
Also getting a glimpse of the crowd right now. If you can even hear me at this point, they're loud. These guys are loud.
世界赛的冠军，2016 LCK 春季赛的王者，让我们欢迎
Yeah, the winning team is going to get to hold on to that trophy for a whole year.
And there it is, SKT, the first of our contenders in this semifinal series here.
Tough tournament so far for SKT, but fantastic last game they played. And coming into this semifinal, definitely not looking like an underdog.
And it's not something unexpected for the team. They've had a tough year as well. They've had to work for everything that they've been able to earn.
Each of these individuals, though, no strangers to the international stage, except for maybe Blank would be the only one that you can point to. So, with no shortage of experience on the international stage and in best of fives with their coach Koma leading the charge, you know they're walking into this day quite confident, to say the least.
Yeah, expecting a lot of growth here from SKT. Some clear issues last week. The Koma and the team should have won.
And then, of course, as you can hear from the crowd, the hometown favorites here in RNG as they're introduced, dominating the group stage.
A surprise, but at the same time have been consistent in the way they're playing, have honestly been the best team if we look at the first games we saw at this tournament.
Consistently great individual performances from these guys. 4 out of the 5 of our all-tournament team consisted of RNG players.
This has to feel honestly fantastic to get that amount of reaction.
Yeah.
Even as quote-unquote foreign players, you know, Looper and Mana coming into China, I think completely embraced by this crowd now.
Yeah, I feel like we're getting drowned out by the noise level in this arena.
One of the best parts of MSI, the regionalism. You can feel it extremely strong here in the crowd.
Well, there they are. One massive shot of our entire arena here. Everyone very, very excited to get this series underway. Of course, we have to give the players some time to get ready, which means that we get some time to discuss. Hello, everyone. I'm James Dash Patterson, here to cover today's semifinal bout with the help of Mitch Crepo Vorspools, Sam Kobe Hartman Kensler, and Martin DeFicio Lunga. Gentlemen, we've made it to the second week of MSI, the knockout stage. How's everyone feeling?
Good, so
So
far.
excited. I feel like I never left.
Oh, hey, who would have thought? All right, well, we've had some time to digest the group stages, and so as we turn towards the bracket, today's semifinal is the first of 2 best-of-5s that will determine our MSI finalists. Each match is single elimination, so there's no second chances, but of course, you do have those 5 games to play.
Except those 5 games.
Except for those 5 games, right? Of course.
Second, third, fourth.
But as we zero in on this specific matchup between RNG and SKT, I want to talk about side choice because you're given as the first seed. RNG gets to choose 1, 3, 5. SKT gets to choose 2, 4. We had an interesting result here because of that.
Yeah, so RNG picked blue side in all their games, and SKT picked red side in all their games. So we have basically 5 games with RNG on blue side. And I think it makes a lot of sense for both teams. SKT want to be red side to get a last pick for Faker. And RNG have a few key picks they can first pick, like an Alistar, but also they have a jungler in MLXG who's fine trading picks. So I actually think it makes a lot of sense for both teams.
It makes me so excited that hopefully we will be able to see more champions in the mid lane now, and we'll get to see Faker flex his champion pool, because this was one of the biggest stories for me coming in, was looking forward to see what he's going to pull out versus these top tier mid laners.
You just want Vel'Koz, that's all.
I want something, Vel'Koz, Cassiopeia, anything, because this mid lane matchup is the creme de la creme, basically. Xiaohu versus Faker should be exciting.
Definitely, and just the evolution of pick and ban. So I really like series where it hopefully goes all the way to game 5, but teams can't solve their issues in pick ban by simply switching sides and getting more liberty. So generally, the blue side team has a bigger advantage in terms of flexibility. So if RNG put on the pressure and lock in some must bans, then SKT may get into trouble later on.
I mean, the thing about blue side in the current meta is on blue side you can target ban more, because you generally actually want a lot of the strong picks to be open so you can get in first rotation, and then in your second rotation as well you can pick a few of the very, very strong picks. So it's either you leave 1 open or you leave 5. And that means you can like target out Wolf as an example, maybe target out Faker if you want to hit him in the mid lane, where SKT is more looking at the generic OPs, if it makes sense, like Nidalee and Maokai and so on.
And I feel like this is actually a fairly scary thing when you're playing against RNG, because they do have so many players. Like if you just look at one, MLXG, for example, you have to be so scared. Nobody else can give Nidalee over to this guy. There are bans that you kind of have to do versus the team, just looking at individual players. And so it makes it a bit scary if you want to play a certain strategy and you want to go for that flexibility that Kreppel's talking about.
Yeah, definitely interested to see how especially mid lane picks come out. Like, is the Azir going to be picked as always, on second rotation blue side? Are we going to eventually get to a scenario where Ryze is first pick worthy because the big 3 mid laners, LeBlanc, Ryze, and Azir out there, Azir maybe off the table, Ryze early picked, not the greatest matchup for LeBlanc, and then SKT, they only have shown true success with really big team fighting come so far towards the later stages of the group stages. So very interested to see how that plays out.
Yeah, with the few days that they had off, I'm sure both support staffs have put plenty of time and energy into figuring out how they're going to attack this pick and ban phase. As the tournament continues, though, keep showing off those regional summoner icons in-game. In addition to supporting your team here at MSI, by taking over our stage, you'll be fighting with the rest of your region for a party IP weekend. As you can see here, Turkey has surged ahead of the pack with Europe and Korea rounding out the top 3. So there's still time to make moves. Make sure you lock in those summoner icons. Both of today's teams reached the MSI bracket stage after defying expectations, though, in last week's round robin. One, in a great way. The other, unfortunately, taking a bit of a dip.
You mentioned expectations. We have to start with SKT, I feel like, because coming in, they were unanimously considered #1 team.
Yep.
It was just about how many games they were going to lose, on their way to #1, not if they would get to #1.
And I mean, again, I don't think you could actually make a proper prediction for them not being #1 if you look at like a power ranking, because they were just that dominant. If you look at the playoff run they had in Korea, and obviously Korea were considered the best region, but RNG, on the other hand, question marks for sure coming in. Also because a lot of people actually considered EDG to be the best team in China before this tournament. They could still be. We actually haven't seen them play here. But RNG just had too many ups and downs, I feel like. Not strong enough games even when they were winning.
Yeah, and it turned out to be a fallacy of, people who are ranking SKT so highly. Part of it was because everyone thought that the problems SKT showed earlier in their season had been solved.
Yeah.
It was like, you know what? They played great up to the finals, and all the problems are gone. They're not gone.
They're not
gone.
They
resurfaced here.
And at the same time, we look at RNG, they have clear weaknesses in their style. Nobody's going to call RNG a perfect team.
No.
We thought once you get to the international stage, they will get exploited, macro-wise, 1-3-1. Didn't happen this tournament. They kept on fighting, and showed up apparently that they're so much better than everybody else at team fights. They can simply just play for that one goal and make it work.
And it was in the 2 matchups that these teams had throughout the group stages that we kind of got a glimpse at some of the strengths and weaknesses of both sides. And the fact that each team took a game off the other is what makes this matchup very interesting.
Yeah, and I think just to also jump a bit quickly back to Kreppel's point here, the thing about RNG, and the reason these games were so close, is because RNG is so extreme in what they do well and in what they do poorly. Because we look at team fighting, we look at individual skill, and we give them almost a 10 out of 10. in everything. But then we look at the vision, we look at the macro play, we look at some of these decisions they make as a team, like lack of game plan in the late game, and we have to take that much, much lower and give like a 4 out of 5 or something like that, where SKT is a more well-rounded team who can match along the way on a lot of the points. So when RNG gets that early lead, yes, they might be better, but if they don't have the right composition or if they don't know how to push the advantage, we get these long games, then suddenly it's a 50-50 late game.
I think those gold graphs, very intriguing just because it shows the percentage of time that RNG was able to hold a lead against SKT. I mean, SKT is still getting a win in the second game, but in terms of their domination early and their ability to create a lead is rather fantastic.
Definitely agree, and they're one of the few teams that have been able to play really aggressively in the early game and utilize things like level 2 ganks coming from the jungle. This is something I wanted to highlight. You know, obviously I'm a little biased looking at the junglers, but I feel like this is a big advantage for RNG. And MLXG's willingness to cheese in a competitive environment is a huge advantage for these guys. You know, and the thing is, he doesn't have to go for those level 2 ganks. He doesn't have to, you know, throw people off like blank. He can play standard as well. It's just something that can earn you an advantage, you know, in a best of 5, snag you an extra game in that best of 5, and get you up in one of those leagues. I feel like Blank specifically is a player that not only do the RNG players know really well, but he does not play well when things are not going according to the standard early game plan. He plays by the book, and MLG will take advantage of that.
I definitely agree it was a big advantage if we look at the BO1s they played before, when you hadn't played against RNG at all, but now when you had 4-5 days to prepare, you faced RNG twice if you're SKT. I feel like a lot of those, should we say, not by the book plays, like ganking 3 minutes Cheese. As an example. Cheese, you know, it's a smart move. It's in that case. You have now seen it. You adapt the way you play and the way you ward level 1.
Let me get Krepo's point in, and then I'll come back to you, Kobe, to close it out.
Yeah, just the beauty of that is, though, Jahu's synergy with MLXG goes back to like all these weeks. So I don't, even if it doesn't go with the standard or the non-standard ganks, I still think they can find an opening. Because even if we go back to week 1 and 2 of the LPL, it was just absolutely beautiful watching them dismantle like some super strong mid laners against them. I saw them play against Easy Hoon once and just completely destroy him. They had these combos, Lissandra, Lee Sin, LeBlanc, Lee Sin, where they just would both dash in aggressively and force open the mid lane. And Faker will need to deal with it because he's been ganked and even put on tilt numerous occasions so far in this tournament, something we haven't seen before.
Yeah, and I feel like I definitely agree with the sentiment behind your point here, Deficio, but you can't just say, hey, we're not going to get cheese at level 2 this game, because there are different ways to do it. And the thing is, everybody has that frustration, right? Whenever you're in a game and, someone comes up behind you at a camp level 2 and you're just like, that's not fair. You know, you're just like, I'm just not going to get cheese next time, right? You either die to the ganks and complain about how they're not fair, or how, invading the jungle early like that is not fair, and you die to them over and over, or you live long enough to join them and adapt to it.
You either play long enough, or you see yourself become a cheater.
Exactly.
But it's a mindset thing, right? Because when SKT have played RNG now in the 2 games we have seen, they tried to dance in the early game. They tried to match some of the early aggression we saw. They didn't realize, maybe I should actually ward at 2:30 instead of at 3 minutes as an example. So some of these ganks could happen. I think that mindset will change, and they will play a lot more safe in the early game and not risk it being as obvious as it was before you can gank the mid lane.
Now, so let's talk about the mid lane. One of the places that might be the focus of some of that early pressure from RNG. Faker versus Xiaohu. Xiaohu looking like a rock star in this tournament. Faker looking minorly off kilter.
Yeah, it's been one of the really interesting points, as we always keep returning to it and we keep bringing it up. But at this point, I feel like maybe, since Faker has done so much, he's conquered pretty much all of League of Legends, done almost everything you can do in this, except get an MSI trophy. And at this point, you have to start to wonder, this guy is taking armor pen runes on his ear. He's making these mistakes that we don't normally see from him. Extending a lot is something he's kind of done before, but more mistakes than we would expect to see from a player of his caliber. And it brings up the question of, is this specific tournament now a mental blocker for Faker? How will he recover? Everyone expects, when the pressure's on, Faker, he's a god. He will come back. He will perform.
I mean, if you forgot the skill is ultimate on LeBlanc, and it's always been Faker's LeBlanc, Faker's LeBlanc. But and then if you look at Jahu,
but that's a mistake, right? That's
that's the exact point.
That's a mistake. Taking the wrong runes is something you're like, I'm never going to do that again.
I know. I definitely agree at that point. That is a mistake, and then that happens. He's definitely not played as well as we expected. But it's not. I don't think he goes into the tournament being, this is MSI. I'm a bit nervous. I don't really know what to do before the tournament
That's the thing about
itself.
them. You never go into it thinking, this is my
exactly. But if we look at Faker itself, he's getting camped. In Korea, he would play over aggressive as well,
And he
like
may
multiple
continue to get
times.
camped.
But in Korea, a lot of the junglers would not punish him in the early game, like a guy like MLXG or a guy like Kasa has been doing here. So I think for him, it's been a lot about adapting to how does other regions play. Not everyone is playing the Korean style.
Right.
And it's taken some time, and that's obviously given him in a few bad games, and he's probably, been tilted from it. But now, again, he's had more time to adapt to it. We assume he will be able to adapt.
I do want to...
And it's not all Faker either, because
Okay.
the junglers are a big part of it.
Right.
Yeah.
Blank,
Exactly.
Blank has had a lot of variance in his play, and it's something that everyone's been looking at. They actually said, Koma said, Bengi could see play at any time, which I don't think anybody really
I mean,
believes.
he may see some play, man. The nosebleeds or the left side
he can see
stage. Maybe he
play.
gets invited to the lounge to watch it backstage. I think that's about the only
I
play
don't
he
know.
will
It's
see.
pretty much sold out. He might not have too many places to sit. I do want to push us forward, though. We talk about the junglers visiting, them being wild cards in this. But I want to talk about another player who has also been known to visit the mid lane or make a play, Mata.
Let's talk about Mata and his vision. More of all, he used to be the god of vision, and he's made a shift in style right now because side stones right now, you only have 3 stacks. You put some wards, then generally you want to base to set up the next layer of vision. We actually have a replay highlight here. So Mata comes out of base. This is like 21 minutes in the game. Right at this moment, RNG have double teleport advantage over their opponents that they can use to play the map. Most teams, you would assume, would go for a 1-3-1, get a numbers advantage, TP in, win the fight. These 3 wards that Mata just placed, and MLXZ right there, all next to mid lane and teleport locations, they will eventually time out. RNG will spend so much time on the map not getting any illicit advantage that these wards will disappear. They don't move up their pink wards line. They don't go for deeper vision. They only have these access wards, shallow wards, call them what you want. And eventually, it ends up in a team fight after they take the tower. They fight for Dragon with no vision. RNG is the best team at fighting with the vision, but they make mistakes in team fights where they don't have overview. And Mata kept canceling his bases over and over. And we have to wonder, is this a choice? And if it is it the right choice?
I mean, the way we like to look at League of Legends, normally we would say it's not the right choice. It's not something a lot of our supports are doing. What Mata is here, like staying on the map for too long. But the reason also we highlight this is because we often talk about this RNG team not 100% understanding how to play the map, not 100% understanding how to execute a game plan. And this basically is just showing it. Because when you start having that too passive warding basically just in the river, you can never push your lanes up then. Yep. Because then you're blind. You're walking blind in, you get ganked, it's hard for you to react in time. And then it means the team instead is just trying to bait around Baron. And the reason that they struggle against SKT with closing out the games was because SKT said, okay, you can't push anywhere. You can only run 5-on-5 because you have no proper vision. So we will just hit 5-on-5 and we can stall you at Baron for like 10, 15 minutes and the game goes longer and longer and then you get 5 items and then it's a 50-50 team fight in the end. That's something RNG needs to fix if they want to win 3 games here.
Yeah, it definitely highlights some of their mid-game problems. Perhaps it's a choice. It is hard to doubt somebody as smart as a player as Mata with the overview, but we have to call it out because there's so much room for opportunity and RNG seem unwillingly to take it. They rely so much on their grouping and relying on somebody overstepping their bounds that if SKT do play the slow game and they realize this and they just avoid that heavily centered area of the map that's warded but then just make use of side lanes with deeper vision, they can stall out perfectly fine and actually get that slower style that they prefer.
Yeah, and I feel like I have to go to bat for RNG now because you guys are highlighting this is a very clear weakness that we've been looking at,
yes.
all tournament long here. However, using your point that you're talking about before where RNG, they're very low, maybe a 4 something on macro and extremely high, almost a 10 on individual play and execution, whereas SKT maybe 8s across the board. I feel like it is much easier for RNG to make a small improvement in the vision game that will have much bigger rewards than it is for SKT to try and bump up from an 8 to a 9, going that, especially something like individual play where you're just like giving Korean advice to the Korean team, hey,
play more.
Don't die there, play better. Yeah, exactly.
All right, well, before we get into game 1, it's time to throw all the cards on the table. Down the line, gentlemen, who are you calling this series for? Mitch, starting with you.
Under the assumption that SKT highlighted some of their flaws, which I think are easier to fix than RNG's, because I think RNG's flaws are very centric to their gameplay, and you actually won't get them out of them. I think SKT is going to take the series. I mean, if you got to put a number in 3-1, because 3-2 predictions are lame.
Yeah.
So 3-1 SKT.
Well, also to go on top of that, I feel like because the side selection is blue side every time for RNG, we are going to maybe have a more snowbally 1-3 either way or something like that. So being more bold in your game prediction, I commend you, Crepo.
All right.
Like I said, though, I think I am going to have to go to bat for RNG. We are seeing the same mistakes from them, but we're just seeing them from different angles. And I feel like RNG, they are a self-aware team. We can see this in their improvements from IEM, where they improved a lot in their lane swaps. Even though their lane swaps are still not great, the small improvement that they made a tremendous difference for them. So I think it is going to be RNG, and I am also going to go 3-1, but in favor of RNG.
All right, well, that splits us 1-1 here to Fischio. You're the tiebreak.
Yeah, I think, Kobe, your point with RNG fixing their mistakes, I think they've had basically an entire split now to work on the vision, how to close out games. You know, they haven't been able to fix it. I actually think the communication problems make it very hard because in-game you need to talk a lot. Where do we move? Where do we go?
Fair.
And I think they will struggle because of it. I think SKT was a lot of poor individual play, like overextending, playing too aggressive, which is something you can go back and look at and talk about and then play more passive. So I think SKT is going to take it. I'm going to join the 3-1 because I don't want to go for the 3-0 just yet, but I think SKT is the favorite in this one. But we will get a lot of close games where it comes down to 1 or 2 big team fights.
One
more
tiny
point.
response to that, though.
Yeah, of course.
I feel like SKT's problems, you say RNG have had the same ones all year long. SKT's are those same ones from all year long that are now re-emerging that we thought had been solved. Incorporating blank has been a huge issue for them for a long time.
Sure.
As well, I would point out Duke's teleports.
People blame
like
the poor blank, though, quite a lot. When actually it's the bot lane, when they're playing against double TP, it's like
That's what I said.
randomly going aggressive and getting TP.
You're hurting
Just
SKT
go.
here. You said
Just
there's
don't
more
SKT. No,
errors.
they will
Yeah.
fix it. That should be fixed over 4 days.
Fischio's working against himself
No,
now on his own
because that's what
prediction.
I think that's going to be fixed over 4 days.
Sometimes you just
Also,
need to put your disagree hat on.
Also, the amount of back and forth we're having is indicative of how good this game is going to be, how good this series is going to be. That's why we're so
Best
excited.
BO5 incoming.
That's why we're so
exactly.
excited for this series.
And if the group
It
stage
had
is
better
indicative
deliver.
of anything, it will deliver. So as the teams make their final adjustments on stage, let's take a look at the hometown team's climb from humble beginnings to the international stage.
And from the LPL, you have Royal Never Give Up, the home crowd team right now.
중국인 신예들로 구성된 팀이었고 그 당시에도 굉장히 패기 넘치고 강력한 팀이었지만 약간 정확한 승리를 향한 목표를 모르는 팀 같았어요. 그리고 현재는 마타와 루퍼가 합류했고 그 이후로는 확실한 게임을 이기기 위한 방법을 알고 플레이하는 팀이 된 것 같아요.
They're going to look for a little bit more, but Wolf picks up Baker. Monty gets a knockback. They're going for Bang. He's gone. Woosh gets it. He's exhausted, though. And a trade kill comes in. Baker's gone. Woosh has 2. He's still alive. Another miracle exchange. It's a full house for Royal.
虽然说我们在联赛中赢的比较多，但是就是没有完全那种压倒性的力量，所以说可能不太被人看好吧。
当时是没有想到的，因为现在的成绩是由我们一步步努力然后进步得来的。
我的天，这一波是没有位移的，一套打上去，一个烟雾弹给上 ，Q 打到2段，又是一个人头，打出雷霆，直接收掉。
当初打的话就没有想过这么多，就每天就打排位嘛，提升自己的实力，然后就一步一步来，能走到今天也挺不容易的。在一个团队里嘛，如果有实力特别强的人的话，然后相对于就有些人实力差距比较大嘛，然后就会特别有压力，然后就会更加努力的去训练，所以到现在每个队员实力都在一直往上升。
중국 선수들이 부족한 점이 많았는데 이번 MSI 대회에서는 평소 실력보다 더 잘해주는 것 같고 계속 더 잘해줘야지 SKT 이길 수 있을 것 같아요.
个人能力还好吧，关键就是马塔教了我们很多东西。
물론 제가 좀 머리를 좀 많이 쓰고 말을 많이 하는 건 사실이지만 그렇다고 제가 다 하는 것도 아니고 저는 오히려 다른 선수들이 저처럼 말할 수 있게 도와주는 역할을 하는 것 같아요.
3级抓他的话可以闪现挡他E的。
Maybe 아직 only 2. Maybe 타 니파운 판정 갱크 그다음 한 거. Maybe 아직 2.
OK。
我这3个吃中干的。
闪现把他E挡了，他基本就死了。
别，别，跳3级。
帮你。
나이스！ 미드没杀。
한 선수가 잘하는 게 아니고 5명이 그러니까 나머지 4명 선수가 잘 도와줬기 때문에 그 한 명 선수도 잘해준다고 생각해요.
之前一直没机会展现出来，因为 IM 那次就队员压力比较大嘛，所以没发挥好。然后这次春季赛夺冠有了机会就进入 MSI， 所以就队员都特别想发挥自己，然后所以就打得比较好。